Jeff, thank you for joining us. We still have about 11 minutes before we're going to begin, but if you'll just hang tight, we'll get started shortly. Thank you. Gene, and we will be beginning the webinar demonstration in about 5 to 6 more minutes. So hang tight, and I'll be with you shortly. Good afternoon with Frontline Technologies, and we will be beginning the demonstration webinar in just a few moments. So hang tight, and we'll start at exactly 3:30 p.m. This is Gene May with Frontline Technologies, formerly Teachscape, and I am happy to have you all join me this afternoon for this Oaysis evaluator-focused demonstration. Just as a reminder, this is a demonstration session only, and it's not meant to be only training. We have a large number of folks that are going to be online with us today, at least so that have registered to be online with us today. Therefore, I'm going to be keeping everyone muted to eliminate the background noise and frustration that might cause. We'll receive a short survey at the completion of this demo today, and there I have added just one question that allows you to submit any follow-up questions that you have. What I will be doing is I'll be collecting those list of questions from today's webinar, combining them with the previous 3 webinars that I've done for both teachers and administrators, and I'll answer all those questions and then send that up in a follow-up email by early next week to all of those that have been in attendance over this week and last week. And just as a reminder, this is a focused webinar that is on the evaluator's view. You will see the teacher's view because that's kind of how the system works, because the evaluators and educators go hand in hand. And so in order for me to be able to best show you how the system works, we will have to look at the teacher side as well. For those of you that have not joined us prior to today on any of the demonstration webinars, just going to be a little bit of background information. In January, Frontline Technologies acquired Teachscape, and what we did as a team is we sat down with their product engineers and our product engineers from Teachscape and looked at what we were able to provide our customers in Reflect and what we were trying to accomplish, as well as looked at what they had been previously providing their customers with Oaysis. And so we made a few decisions in regards to which product was going to be best to serve the needs of our customers. And so we've kind of combined them on the backside, but we're going to cut Oaysis moving forward. And so it's going to look a little different to you from Teachscape Reflect, but the functionality is going to be very similar. I think what you'll find is that the functionality is actually going to be better meeting your needs. And a lot of the things that people have asked me over the past couple of years in New Mexico while I've been working with you for features and functions are really things that we're able to provide for you now. And so you'll see that today as we are moving forward. The only thing you should be seeing on my screen right now is just this document that says we'll be starting at 3:30 p.m. I'm going to switch over in just a moment, and so that we can all see the system as is. Before we do that, though, I do want to go over a couple of other things just as a note for you. This webinar today is being recorded. The teacher version was recorded as well. When I set that follow-up email, I'll also send you a link to where you can view both the teacher version as well as this evaluator version that I'm going to be sharing with you. And free to share this with any other users in your school building or in your district as you see fit. We'll also post the links on the NMTeach website, and I'll be working with the NMPED to make sure that that occurs too. But again, just keep in mind that it's meant just to be a demonstration. There's some decision-making going on, and of course there will be individualized district settings that will need to be taken into account. So what I'll show you today is general setting set up with the way that we have it set up at the state level for the time being. And when we have specific training for district level administrators that will be managing the system, they'll be helping make some decisions for individual districts about how those settings will function within their district. So just keep all that in mind. This is a general webinar for a demonstration. And so a lot of the specificity that you may have questions about, I'll feel free to ask those questions in the survey at the end and answer them the best I can. However, I may not be able to answer all of those because the district level managers will have some input into what that's going to look like for your district. There is going to be a training for district level managers that will occur, and I'm still finalizing the dates for those with the MPED, and we are still tossing around a few dates. We're hoping to have those finalized in the next day or two, so hopefully by the early part of next week we can get that information out to all districts as well. So without further ado, let's just jump right in there. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this Word document. And so what you're looking at now, as you're looking, you should see in my learning plan, Oaysis site, and that is yellow and blue with a little bit of green. And in this window, I am logged in, as you can see up here in the top right of this screen, as a New Mexico Administrator 1, which is just a training account. So you can ignore it. Just understand that anytime you see this Oaysis admin in the top right, I'm working as an evaluator. I'm going to show you a little bit of tour of the site from an evaluator's perspective. You'll have the help section. You still have your log in, log out. Over here you have your profile information that you can look at as far as changing your password, et cetera, and then you have changing username, password, et cetera over here on the left. The reason why this page right here underneath Learning Plan tab is blank is because evaluators are not evaluated within this online system in the state of New Mexico, so it's going to say 0 information here. You're not going to work very much from this Learning tab in your own account. What you are going to work at is from an admin tab, which is this district admin tab right here. So when I click on it, it's actually going to take me to a page to where I have a view of those teachers that have been assigned to me in my building. And so this is what we would have called the dashboard in Teachscape Reflect. And it functions a lot differently as well, and I think you're going to like the improvements. So because we have this school site set up to where all evaluators in a specific building have access right to all teachers in a specific building, then you're going to be able to see your entire staff. Again, that's a district setting that'll be determined at a later point in time. But I can see here that I have a teacher. I can see what evaluation type they're on. I can see that it's for this school year. I can see the press of that. And you can see over here the wording of the progress as far as where it's at. Here, if you notice, this teacher 3, has everything completed, but awaiting finalization, which has to occur at the district level. If sound, you might want to check a couple of things. The sound is going through on my side, so I apologize for the inconvenience that is for you on your end. You can also try the dial-in with your phone to get the sound as well if you can't get it via the computer. Continue on, I can scroll down through this list and I can see all the teachers. I don't have very many teachers in this account right now. I only have about 6 or 7, so my list is relatively short. It's just a quick way for me to be able to view something and be able to see the progress overall of those teachers. This is what we call the process view right here. You can actually click on a teacher. So if I wanted to click on this teacher 3, and I click on it, it's actually going to pull up more details about this teacher's plan underneath. And so now that I've got teacher 3 highlighted down here, I can see that I have the basic components that you saw on the NMTeach plans that were in Teachscape this year, as far as the observation plan description, the PP, domains 1 and 4, the observation, and the end of the year reflection. Items are still in there, and quite honestly, we haven't made a huge change in what the content of those items are. We've just made a few changes into how those items are functioning. So I can click this little plus sign to the left of these, and I can see the actual individual components under these activities here. And underneath the observation plan description, there's one thing that was completed. Underneath PDs, we have our self-evaluation, the goal-setting form, mid-year review, end-of-the-year reflection, etc. Domain 1, we have things there. Domain 4, a couple of things there. Underneath the live classroom observation, we have our typical form here. And end-of-the-year reflection down here, we have these items. Now, before I go any further, of course, I'm going to show you that we were looking at New Mexico NMTeach 1 observation cycle. That was for a teacher that's highly effective or exemplary. If we look at this one with option 3, which is 2 observations, notice that there's 2 observations that are in that, et cetera, et cetera. So those changes are still the same as what they were this past year. We're going to specifically be looking at this teacher 6 today that started. And I kind of want to go over with you some of the buttons that you're going to see on this screen right here when we're highlighting this teacher 6. So we notice that we have this button right here that's kind of a gray cog or a gray, what you might call a gear, so to speak. It actually is just allowing us to manage the instances. So just so you can see, for example, with the ability to duplicate things, this is what we would call the duplicate button in Teachscape. So I can go here and I can change this from 1 to 2 if district settings allow you once they've been set. And it's actually going to take that and it's going to do the observation domain 1 and make it the second one. And I don't really want to do that today. I just want you to see that functionality and understand that. So I'm going to hit submit and make that go back to just 1. Now, this other button, anytime you see a calendar, that means it's an item that has calendaring built into it, and which means that it needs to be scheduled, quite honestly, as far as due dates go. That's one thing I really like about the new system is that it allows you to set due dates at the district level as well as at the school level, if they're not set at the district level, about when you want things to be completed. When those due dates are set, then that will actually prompt a red icon. So I'm going to show you for a second what that would look like. So let's say that we wanted to set for this mid-year review. And I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to erase that. And I'm going to set it for, let's go back and actually post-set it. Like February 1st. I'm just going to click Submit. So immediately what it's going to do is it's going to say that the due date is 2/1/16. We do a refresh on this, and we get a refresh up here. We'll go to the teacher's page here in a minute because that's something for the teacher to complete. You're going to see that they're going to have a red icon beside their line item that indicates to them that there's something in their task list that they need to complete that's overdue. We'll talk more about that momentarily. So when you see this little person icon, that means I want to reassign that to a different administrator in my building. I can reassign it by just clicking on this, changing it from the drop-down menu of who I want to be responsible for that in my building, and then submit and assign it. Now, I just kept that one with me, because I wanted it to stay with me while we're doing this demo today. But you still have that functionality. One that's improved is if there's something in here that's not required by your district or the state to complete and you want to get rid of it, you have the ability this year to go over here and just finalize the whole thing, individual components or the entire element. And it's very simple. I just simply click on this to say finalize, and it's going to say, hey, it's not been submitted. Do you still want to continue? And go, okay. And so what that's going to do is going to mark it as complete, as you see right here. Helps clean up your dashboard and keep up with the things that you're actually going to hold folks accountable for completing versus the items that are just optional. And of course, that's a district level decision. Now, one question that I often get is, what if I finalize something that doesn't need to be finalized? Well, in this case, it's just a form right here, and so I can open up this form, and I can go down here and click Edit Form, and that's going to open it back up. That will require it to be resubmitted. And once it does that, I'm just going to close that, and then you'll notice now that we're back to incomplete, and we have the ability to start all over. So that's a nice feature in the system as well. Now on the teacher side for just a second, because our conversation moving forward is going to kind of be walking through this plan. Switch screens, and I'm going to go to my other browser where I am actually logged in as a training teacher 6 here. This is the teacher we were looking at, and you'll notice from their dashboard, from a teacher's dashboard, they only see the things that are currently requiring them to do something or things they currently have access to. The dashboard is broken down by scheduled components, action required, those things that are in progress, that are waiting on someone else to do something, and then those things that have been completed. It makes it really easy for the teacher to be able to monitor their account as well. So at the beginning of the year, the way I have this school site set up is that these items right here, the observation plan description form, your self-evaluation, the goal setting for the PDP, and then the artifact collectors for domains 1 and 4 are open from the very first day of school. They don't require any action on the administrator's part, because typically those are items that are going to be done within the first few days of, or the first few weeks of school starting. So just so you see how it functions and so how it works, this NMTeach observation plan description is the same form that you saw in the system this year. And what it does is click on the link to open it up, and it's going to open up in a new window, and it's just simply that verbiage that we had from last year. That is, this is what the observation plan is. They still have a link to the calendar for the NMTeach calendar, as you can see right there. And it's able to go back here, and all it's asking the teacher to do is just say, hey, yes, I've read that, and I know where this information is in case I need to access it again. Once they click on that button, they're able to submit this. They also could save it, or they could save and notify, which would send you a message, meaning saying, hey, I've done something, but I've not really submitted it. Most people don't use that very often. And they also can reset this, which would clear out the form, or they can print a copy of this if they wanted to. I'm just going to go ahead and submit it so that we can mark it complete. Now, the way I have this site set up is every time something is completed or some action is taken in the system, you notice I refreshed that, it moved it down here, and it says it's awaiting administrator acceptance. Any teacher does something, and it's going to notify the evaluator that is assigned to that task that, hey, teachers went in and done something. So it's going to notify them by email. The same is true if the evaluator does something on a teacher's account. It's going to notify the teacher by email and say, hey, your principal has assigned something, or your principal has done something in the system that needs your attention. Now, like I said, that's the setting that I have set up in this system for this site. That is going to be a decision that is yet to be made on exactly what email notifications will be sent. And I am hoping that that's a decision that will be made by your district administrator that is actually managing the system. Because people like having those email notifications, while other people don't want so many email notifications. So, like I said, I have it set up right now on this site that it's going to send those email notifications. Noticing administrator acceptance. So if I flip back over to that administrator's account and I do a quick refresh on this teacher right here, notice now that it says that this is in progress, and it's up, and notice that it's awaiting me to finalize it. Now, if I'm a principal and I don't want to look at this form because I know what's in this form, because once I've seen it once, I don't need to see it again. I can just come straight here and click this without even opening the form and finalizing that element. Nice. And do that for anything that has a little thumb beside it, which is another nice feature. So usually that's pretty quick to get taken care of, get out of the way. A question I get asked often is, do I have to do that all here, one teacher by one teacher? No, not at all. If I go to this detail view, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail today since this is a demo, it's going to list out everything. And what I could do is I could come over here and just select the evaluation type that I'm working with. So in this case, I think I'm working with this one. And I'm going to look at this observation plan description. We want to look at that NMTeach observation plan description and apply that filter. And it's going to show me all of these right here. And if there were some of these that need to be marked complete, I could just go down through here and check mark these babies and here, and then I could actually finalize all of them at one time for the set, which is a feature of the system is too. So back over here to where we were. Teacher 6 that we were working with. And notice that that's done. Observation PDP is in progress. So let's go back over here to the teacher account. Let's finish that up. Here, the teacher also has the option to use the self-evaluation. Again, that's a district level decision. It's not required by the state. But I want you to see what this form looks like. There is a good reason to use it. And most of you have already heard me talk about that in the past. It's a lot different than the form did last year because we set it up actually as a rubric, because a lot of the feedback that I received from folks was that they would really like for the teacher to be able to see the rubric while they're doing this. So we have done just that. Notice the directions stayed the same from this year, but now there are specific directions on how to use this form right here, which just says to the teacher, hey, if you click this drop-down arrow, it's going to open up the rubric where you can read it, and then you can just mark what is that you feel like you are evaluating yourself at. They also have the option to enter their rationale. Now, a district could require that this rationale be entered, and that would be a district level setting. And they can type in why they think they're that. Often teachers like to utilize this as a piece of evidence for their reflective practice. A lot of districts require the teachers do that for that same purpose as well. They close it. If they open it back up, everything that they did was still right there. Let me look at that rationale. There it is. Close up, and then go on to the next one. And so they would continue doing this just simply by clicking on the rubric, entering in their rationale through the items in this. They don't have to close it before they go forward. If they want to keep up, they can just continue clicking. And they get finished, which I'm not going to go through. I'm not going to go through and do all of those for you today. When they get finished, they can come down here and submit. If they need to save it and come back to it, they could do that as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and submit, because the way that this is set up in this system is it doesn't require them to do all of it. It could be set up to where it was required. I'll go ahead and hit submit. And what that's going to do is it's going to email my principal and say, hey, I have submitted to you this teacher self-evaluation as a part of my PD, and I would like for you to be able to accept it or take a look at it. All they can do once they submit it is view it, and if they click this here, it's going to open it up to where they can view it, and right here is what they would be viewing, but they couldn't edit it at that point. They could just view it unless the principal opens it up back up, be edited. Now, when I come over here to this real quick to the principal side, I'm going to do a quick refresh with just this teacher. And here I look at the PDP. I see now that this self-evaluation is waiting to be finalized. As a principal now, I could click on this icon that looks like a form, and it's going to allow me to view it. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to view it, and I'm going to be able to see what they've done and what they've typed, or all that information all the way through there. And because I didn't score these did not open up, so understand that. But one of the features I really like this year is you have the ability, you can print off a copy, you can ask them to edit it if you wanted to, or you could finalize it. But the thing I like is before it's finalized, you have the ability to comment back and forth. So you can add a comment right here, nice selection, etc., whatever you want to type, and you can submit that. You have the same formatting tools here as you would in a word processor, so that's a plus right there. So once you hit submit, it's going to notify the teacher that, hey, your principal has commented on this form, and so now the teacher can go back in and view this form and see the comment the principal's made. Because I'm the principal, and because I typed this comment and it's not been finalized yet, I have the ability to reply to my own comment, edit it, or delete it. If we look at this from the teacher's perspective, And I come over here to the teacher's account, do a quick refresh here, excuse me, and get that self-evaluation because I got an email notification saying the principal had commented on it. I could open it up and look at it. And if I go down at the bottom, I'm going to see that principal's comment. You cannot delete your comment. The only thing they can do is reply to it if they so choose. So they could type in here their reply, whatever it may be, and hit submit. When they hit submit, then there's the comment. Because it's not been finalized and because they wrote the comment, they have the ability to edit their comment or delete their comment, which is a nice thing. So, in moving forward, what I'm going to do is close this out. I'm going to go back over to that principal's account. It's a good way to open the dialogue between the teacher and the evaluator, which is a nice thing. From the principal side, I'm going to go ahead and finalize this. Once it's been finalized, it'll notify the teacher that it's been finalized. Now, if I go back in and look at that again, I want you to notice that it kept the comments, but I can't remove them. So this is a great way to document dialogue between the teacher and between the evaluator, which is a nice thing. And so you have that dialogue. So I'm back over here. I do get the PDP forms just for a second, and then we'll move forward. And to do that, I want to go back to that teacher account. So we have the goal setting form. So whenever I click this open, it's going to open it up for the teacher. The teacher is sitting here trying to set their goals. And in their goal setting form, they have the option, again, to select which of the areas, which of the components they're going to focus on. We added, by popular demand and request that I received this year, the domain 4 to this. So that is in there now. So the teacher identify which of these areas she wanted to focus her PDP on or his PDP. They have the formatting options here to use. They could write their goals. Down here, write their action steps. What may be, and scroll down here to the next thing and write any assistance, and maybe they're just going to type it in here in a Word piece. Now, if the district does not utilize the online forms in Oaysis next year, and you're going to use a local form, you see that you still use the same place. We've simplified it, and right down here at the bottom of this form, your teachers would just leave all of this blank here and actually add their electronic version of their PDP right here in this form. So whether they're filling out the top half or whether they're leaving the top half blank and uploading a local district form, like some of you do, it's all the same place, except for they're just going to do it a little differently. So that PDP, they just click add an artifact, just like they did in Teachscape. All this beginning of the year. PDP, and then their last name, whatever that be. And then they're going to come down here and they're going to select the file from their desktop. And I'm just going to grab a file off my desktop real quick. And then they save. And it's going to save the form right here. And so once they get it saved and they have that PDP uploaded for the beginning of the year, they're just going to go ahead and hit submit. Again, I have it set up here as the submission. We'll send an email notification to the principal that, hey, that's been submitted, which is a nice piece. And your review form, I'm going to go show it to you because we have it built uniquely. Before I did, actually, I need to flip back over to the principal side for a second because I need to finalize that. So bear with me one second while we go back over here. Do a quick rush on this teacher. And here's that PDP form. It's waiting to be finalized. I can open it up and look at it if I wanted to. Before I finalize it, I can still comment on it. Here's the artifact or the PDP that the person uploaded, or here's the form that they completed in the system. Nice and neat. I could comment on it. I could open it up and edit it. If I wanted them to actually send that information and change it, I could send it back to them with it. It'll notify them that I want them to make changes. But if I just want to look at the form that they uploaded, I can just click on this icon right here, and it's going to download it for me. Click on it, it's going to open it up, and there's that document right there, all within my web browser, which makes it a little bit easier to view. But I'm ready for them to finalize. I can just go ahead and click. And so you move that forward. Now, I did have a question that came through about text sizes and the font. You can always increase the size of your font within your browser if you need to, just by coming in here and zooming in and make it a little bit larger for you. You do have that ability. So, one second, I need to take care of some folks that have come unmuted, so give me just a second.
Oh my God, Greg's gone. Well, Greg had left for calls.
There's, I just want to make sure we got everybody on mute. Okay, moving forward. Now it goes back into her mid-year PDP. So I'm back in the teacher account here. I'm going to clone that mid-year PDP. I want you to notice what we built into the form. It's over the questions and from that beginning of the year form. So they should look at two forms that carries that information over and ask them just to update it for the mid-year. If they needed to, and they wanted to add artifacts to support their progress on their PDP, they could do it here. And again, if your district uses a local mid-year PDP form, they can add it here at the bottom because we have a place for that. They'll complete the mid-year PDP either utilizing the form here or uploading your district form if that's required here before they submit. And of course, they would just answer these. Now, I'm not going to show you the end of the year because that would be redundant, but the end of the year form is exactly like it was this year, except for it's going to pull over the answer to all of these questions from the beginning of the year as well as all these questions from the middle of the year into that end of the year form so that they can upload it, or that way they can fill it out and do their final reflection, as well as there's a place for them to upload the end of the year just like you see here. So I'm just going to get it out of our way. Things that are changed a little bit, and I do want to show you from the teacher side before I move forward, is this Domain 1 artifact and Domain 4 artifacts. I'm just going to show you one of them for the sake of showing it to you. But the teachers are asked to upload their artifacts for review because we know that most districts are only requiring their teachers to be scored one time in Domains 1 and 4. Therefore, they're collecting artifacts or evidence throughout the entire school year up until a point in the spring when they usually set a deadline for that stuff to be submitted. We've made it easier for teachers to be able to do that as well as for administrators to look at that. And so when the teacher wants to, beginning at the beginning of the year, they can go in here, open this artifact up, and they can start adding artifacts. They add the artifacts just like we talked about earlier. So maybe this is a lesson plan example. One, the only thing that we are requiring the teachers to do, and we've explained this in our demo yesterday for the teachers, is we want the teachers to align it to the rubric to make the job easier for the evaluator. So they're going to say, hey, this is a lesson plan, so I want the principal to know that I am sharing this piece of evidence with them because it shows a good example of evidence for designing coherent instruction criteria, and also is good evidence for setting instructional outcomes. And so Domain 1, they can add those criteria. And then they go down here and they upload that lesson plan. I'm just going to use that same file I was using. Click and save. And so that saves that, and it also provides it's going to provide the principal more information about why are they sending me this piece of evidence? What do they want me to look for? It makes it a little bit easier for you when you get ready to score that Domain 1. Now, the teacher's probably going to save this because they're going to come back in here and add more throughout the year until you set a deadline for them about when they need to submit it. But once they submit it, they can no longer add any more. And most districts would say, hey, I'm going to plan on scoring this the last week of February or the first week in March. So teachers, you need to have everything submitted to me online by X date. That way everything's been submitted. Then once submitted it, then it's going to make your job a lot easier. But they're usually going to save. They can also directly add links in here. So if they wanted to add another artifact, and perhaps it's an example of communication or with the parents or something to that effect, they could type in, maybe it's my teacher website. Maybe it's what they want to share with you. They can align it over here. Knowledges, whatever criteria may be. And then they can come down here and instead of selecting file, they can actually select a URL. Type that URL, whatever it may be. Click. So now it's going to actually provide that website. And again, they can check that by clicking the icons. If I click the icon for the website, it's going to take me directly to that website, which is a nice little trick. And then I'm going to go ahead and submit this for the sake of submitting because I want to show you how this makes your life easier on your side. So I'm going to flip back over to the evaluator side because we're ready to look at that. I'm going to do. We're going to assume for this teacher self-evaluation or this mid-year review that I think it's fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and click OK on it and hit submit, which is nice. And we're going to go down here to this domain 1. Their artifacts. I'm just going to finalize those because I know I don't need to look at them right this second. I know where I'm going to look at them. So those are complete. Now I'm ready to go in and score this teacher for domain 1. Or it could be domain 4. Either one, they work exactly the same. So I'm going to put this form right here, which says complete the NMTeach observation on the form. If I wanted to schedule a due date or schedule a timeline, I could use the calendar. The calendar is easy. It just opens up a little calendar place. I can select the calendar date. I type in a message. Anytime you use the calendaring schedule feature anywhere in the system, no matter where you see it, it allows you to add the time, the duration, if it's a meeting, the location, all the information as well as notes. And it also will email the teacher or the user. Make sure you have that checked. I have it defaulted to be checked whenever you use it so that it automatically emails. And then you'll see that there's a calendar icon that you can actually download. Let me close that. Here I could actually download that and add it to my personal calendar if I wanted to, which is a nice feature in the system. The teacher gets the email with the calendar file as well. So it's all good. But when I am ready to go in and schedule it, or to actually score this teacher on this, I'm just going to click this open right here, and it's going to take me to a rubric page to where I can score. But what I want you to notice is that here are those domain 1 artifacts that the teacher uploaded and aligned any system to domain 1. So I have the lesson plan example that was aligned to 1B and 1C, so I know that the teacher is wanting me to look at that piece of evidence for domain 1 and 1B and 1C. And you as the administrator can click on the icon, open that baby up and look at it right here, and then come right back over here and utilize that piece of evidence. Here's that website that we uploaded and submitted. So it's a little bit easier about it because it organizes those artifacts right here onto the form that you're going to score so that they're easy access for you to look at while you're scoring the teacher for domain 1. Now, you'll notice that in the scoring section here, if I'm going to score this teacher for domain 1, the little red icon right here says there's something required that has to be done, and underneath here it says that all criteria must be selected, which means you have to have a score, and you're also required to have notes entered for each criteria. So what that means is I'm going to look along this, domain 1A, identify where I want to score that teacher, click on the rubric, come down here, notice that now I enter my notes, so I click the section, come in here and enter my notes that support the reason why I gave that teacher what they scored. As you remember from this past year, this is what is required by the state, is that every teacher have every domain element scored, as well as have evidence to support that scoring. Once I have that, I can go down to the next section, choose I want to identify that teacher, and it's an evidence. 1C, evidence. Score, enter my notes and evidence. Come down, score teacher, enter evidence. Notes. And then, of course, at the bottom, you have the optional strengths, opportunities for improvement, and summary. You can fill those out if you want to, or you don't have to, depending on what your district asks you to do. But as it's always good to summarize what you've just finished. Now, we'll look down here at the artifacts piece. This is a place for the administrator to attach any documents that they want to be a part of this observation. If you had something you wanted to add, you can do that right here, and you would do it exactly the same way that I showed you that the teacher was adding an artifact earlier. Now, I can save this, or I can submit it. If I save it, then the teacher still can't see it. But if I submit it, then the teacher is going to be able to see it, and they're going to be notified that they have a form waiting for them to review. So I'm and click submit. It's going to send it over to where the teacher can actually see the score. And all there is to scoring that domain 1 and domain 4, because if I look at domain 4, it has the exact same two things with the exact same functionality, which is nice to know. This is waiting acknowledgement, but it's also that I have the ability to finalize button. So even though it's waiting acknowledgement, which means that it's asking the teacher to acknowledge the fact that they've seen it, I finalize it whether they acknowledge it or not. So that's just something that you need to know. So if I look at this from the teacher side really quickly, which I'll do, I'm going to do a quick teacher's account since it's been sitting idle. And now I have an action required, which is showing me that I need to acknowledge. The acknowledge doesn't mean that they agree. It only means that they have seen this and they would just click acknowledge. Of course, they could provide a comment before they acknowledge if they wanted to and say that I disagree with you or whatever, however your district wants to utilize that or whatever instructions you give your teachers. That's a district decision. They will have access to it, so it's always good to kind of think about that ahead of time and kind of make sure that you communicate clearly your expectations in regards to the use of that. Click acknowledge, and that's just going to date it for the trader of when the teacher's actually seen that score, which is nice to know. Now notice that it's still sitting in there in progress queue because it's waiting for the administrator to finalize it, just so you know. So if I'm over here to this side, the last step in doing for anytime you score something is to finalize it, and then that makes it final, and it will have that marked complete and ready to call it that piece. Same for domain 4. Now, before I go to domain 4, I want to go into, I'm not going to go over domain 4 today, simply because of time, naturally, as we're pushing 310, or 410, excuse me. I want to go on down here to how we would actually complete an observation, because I think this is an important piece as well. Looking at this, here we have the pre-observation form, we have observation, and we have the post-observation form. So anytime we are doing anything in the system, again, we have the ability to make some adjustments. Here's our settings to duplicate this if we needed to in any instance. We have the calendaring. Notice that all three of these have a calendaring icon. That's because if this was an announced observation, then you're going to have a pre-observation conference usually that's associated with this form. The observation, of course, is going to be scheduled with the teacher, and the post-observation conference is going to be scheduled as well. So you have the ability to schedule all three of those components if this is announced. If it's announced and I'm only going to be doing the observation and a post-observation, then I can come over here and just finalize that and mark it complete and get way it doesn't show up anymore as something I need to do. But here the other nice thing is if I'm looking at observation 1, if I want to schedule all three of these at one time, I can just click on this top level icon for the calendar and it pull up all three things and let me just go ahead and plan those. So if thinking about this from an administrator's perspective, let's say that I'm going to be actually, let me think about the observation first. So if I want to go into this teacher's classroom, let's say Thursday, on the 20 a.m., I'm going to be in there for 45 minutes, and I'll put in here your classroom. That's how I can put notes in there if I wanted to. It's going to automatically notify the user because I have it set up like that. It's going to be in there on the 12th. I probably want to have that pre-observation conference up here, probably sometime before the 12th. So I'm just going to say I'm going to do that on the 11th, and I'm going to do that before school starts. And I'm going to do that for, let's say, 20 minutes. My office. And then down here in the notes, I may say to the teacher, please submit pre-op form prior to this meeting. I'm going to put there, and then I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to go ahead and schedule on my calendar for my sanity when I'm going to set aside time to go over that observation that I did on the 12th with teacher. And maybe I can't get to it until the following Tuesday, let's say. I'll go ahead and do that right here while I'm planning this out, say at 9 a.m., 20 a.m., I'm going to her classroom or his classroom. Here, please. You know, what I probably would do before I actually meet with them. This form here, I could actually say to them, please submit form prior to our meeting on this date. And so notice to complete that form. And I can just hit submit, and that's going to schedule all three of them in one setting right there. So now it has all of these. You'll notice because this is a classroom observation, it says proposed. And so it's giving the benefit of the doubt to the teacher that, hey, I want you to make sure this is okay. If it's okay, go ahead and accept it. If your district chooses not to allow that option, we can change a setting in the system that doesn't allow the teacher to accept the calendar. It just allows the administrator to dictate the calendared item. Just another way to utilize the system. Comes with the calendar file. It's going to send an email about all three of those, which is nice to know. And so it makes it simple and easy. If I look at this from the teacher's perspective really quick, here, what's going to change their system is going to have an action required. And so notice that all three of these have action required now. And it's saying to accept the schedule or decline the schedule. I'm going to accept each of these. Say yes, accept. And notice it's going to move it to the list unless it's the observation. And the observation moved up here to scheduled now so that they have an idea that, hey, that's on my calendar and it's scheduled. These items are not forms. They are just things. They still stay here, but now they can actually open the form since they accepted it, which is a nice thing to know. So this pre-observation form, they would simply open it up. The form is exactly the same. It has a place here for artifacts. So what we've done is instead of having a separate task for them to submit their lesson plan, we've made it a part of this pre-observation form. So they could actually add any pre-observation artifacts that would include their lesson plan, but maybe it's also student worksheets or stuff as they're answering these questions to be submitted to you all in one swoop fail versus having multiple items on that list to complete. Fill it out and complete it and send it to you. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to show it to you. And so now I'm going to show you also that post-observation form. We might this again, my bad, because I did not refresh this page. That post-observation form, again, is identical to the one that you saw this year, except has a place for artifacts related to post-observation level of the lesson, but the questions are the same. And again, all forms can be submitted, reprinted, or commented on just like we had seen earlier. Now, back to the principal side, because now let's say that we've completed the pre-observation conference and we're ready in the classroom and do the actual lesson. So here you're going to see this new tool I haven't talked about, which is your evidence collection tool, as well as the observation form itself, and as well as the calendar and the final those items are the same. So if I'm going into the classroom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize this evidence collection tool and simply click on it, and it's going to open up the tool. And right here it is. It's short and little. As you can see, I can move it around the screen, which is nice. So I actually move it over here to the side, and then over here still see the rubric while I'm gathering my notes and evidence for this teacher. And so to gather your notes and evidence, if you need more information, you can click on the arrow here to open up for the information that you saw this year. We also have the whole rubric over here, so it makes it a little bit easier. Now, one of the things I like is I'm just typing in evidence into this box and hitting enter. And that is getting saved. Now, I'll show you where that evidence goes in just a moment, but I want to show you this piece down here, which I really like, which is the shortcut feature. So these shortcuts, you're going to have the S and the T, and if I hover over them, notice that they're shortcuts for words. And the thing I really like is when I'm typing in a classroom, I can type student asks, typed in S, and the T responded, and notice it's typed in the T and it automatically filled in the word teacher. Those are shortcuts. The HW is homework. What was assigned? And I really like is that you can click on the settings icon, which again is that gear-looking icon. And a student and teacher, you can set up your own dialogue shortcuts. So if certain things that you find yourself repetitively typing that you want to use your own little shorthand, you could come down here and do that as well. I say B is for behavior. And add that down here. And so type in B was normal. And if I'm using that word a lot, which is a nice thing. Now, the other thing you can do is you can come here, click on, which is nice. Click on this, come over here, click it, and it's going to add that beside your piece of evidence. So if you like to tag your stuff as you're thinking of it, it's not really tagging, it's just sorting it for us, but it's going to add it into your notes and evidence just for a reminder for later. So I can come here, click here, come down here and type, and it's going to add it. Now, once I've finished collecting all my evidence, then what's going to happen is I'm going to go up here to this Evidence Review tab and click on it. It's going to show me 3 tabs: Aligned Evidence, Unaligned Evidence, and Evidence Score. Aligned Evidence, and that's where I'm going to see all that evidence that I just collected. Now, what I would normally do is align my evidence. So I can go through this list and click multiple ones at one time. If all 3 of these align to 2A, I can just click 2A and click Align. If this align to 2A and 2C, for example, I can click multiple things and click Align. And it's going to move it from this list. And it's here to the Aligned Evidence list, so that it's easier for me to keep sorted. And I'm going to do that for each one of these. I'm going to come down here. I'm just doing this randomly right now so that I have a piece of evidence tagged to everything. I'm going to evidence. Just like last year, except for in just a different functionality here. Just going to click and align it to the rest of this. And I'm going to hit Align. Now, just like last year, once I have everything aligned, I'm just going to get this Evidence tab here, and I'm going to click Sync. This is going to allow me to sync that evidence directly to the observation rubric, which makes it a little bit easier. So I have that synced. Now I'm ready to go in, and I'm actually ready to score right here. So here's my observation. I've already done the evidence. Now I'm ready to go to the rubric, which is that form, and it's going to open it up. Again, it's set up just like it was before. Notice here in the notes section, it's automatically added the evidence that I aligned to A. Here's the B. Here's the evidence to 2-3. Now, the good thing is that I still just click on an area of the rubric that I want to score them based on the evidence that I've gathered, and then I can actually enter notes. If I want to go in and edit this, even if I collected this evidence using the evidence tool, I can go in and add more to it if I wanted to by just clicking in there. And then to notes here. Now notice the notes I type here are not tagged with a time and date like they were up here because I used the evidence collection tool to gather this. So it's going to be time and date stamped, where here I'm just adding notes. If I'm collecting all my evidence in a Word document, because I know some of you still do that, you can copy and paste into here too. It's not a big deal. So like if I was to open up that Word document that I opened earlier, close that, go to Oaysis, and let's say I want to add that here in this section. I go in here, do paste. Now notice it kept the same formatting. So you want to be careful about that, or you're going to have a whole bunch of stuff that's way too big for this thing. There we go. Get it down to a normal size now. You do that, you're going to score each of these. Remember that each of these are required to have a score and what's an evidence. So you cannot submit it without both of them being entered. But since I use the evidence collection tool, the notes and evidence are already in there, so I just need to go through and read those and then score this teacher where I think is appropriate. I click the rubric, and the rubric is verbatim from the NMTeach rubric, so everything you see here is what you would see on the paper version or if you went to NMTeach. So the next thing, of course, you have the opportunity to provide strengths, opportunities for improvement, as well as a summary. And again, you have the option to add artifacts. Those are all optional items. Use them as you see fit and per district's guidance. Once that, you're going to submit those scores. I'm going to hit, and anytime utilizing scores is going to send it to the teacher for acknowledgement. If you finalize it before they acknowledge it, that's fine. You have that prerogative. But if you want the system to document when the teacher actually saw the scores, then you wait until they've acknowledged it. And then you can finalize it. That way the system will document that they've actually they've seen the scores. The pre-observation form, again, I'm just going to open it up so you can see it really quick. It's the same questions. This is the observation again. Notice that show you any artifacts that were submitted to you as well as the answers to their questions. Now, on the teacher side, they actually have text boxes to type in their responses to this. Since you can only do it and it's not your responsibility to fill it out, you don't have those text boxes. So that's the whole process for the observation there. It has changed a little bit. Some of the questions that I've gotten is that sometimes they're like, last year you had the ability to check off the critical elements or the critical attributes associated with the rubric. As of right now, this year, you do not have that possibility. That's because we switched it over to a full rubric in the system. And so if you noticed in that rubric, if I look at it again, those critical attributes that you were checking off are actually just these little bullet items right here, which are a part of the main rubric. So, the pros and cons to that, but the decision so far has been made that this is the way that it will look for you. So you're losing that. For the time being, at least, that's the decision that was made at the state level based on focus group feedback that we received and worked throughout that process. We took that into consideration whenever that was being done. Observation itself, again, can have comments back and forth, etc., moving forward. Now, we've went over this stuff, and like I said, this is really a demo more so than a training, but I think that you're going to appreciate that. The one thing that I think you're going to be most appreciative of that I want to show you now is I really want to share with you the reflection, because this was a feature that a lot of people may or may not have used this year, but there's two pieces in here. You have the end of the year teacher reflection and the end of the year reflection form from the administrator. I'll show you the end of the year reflection form from the administrator because I think that will be something that you like. But I'm going to go up here to one that actually was completed, if that's all right. Let's just do this one. I'm going to open it up so you can see it. It's going than what it was last year. Well, is we have a form for end of the year reflection, pulls together all of the scores that have been submitted and finalized for this teacher in one place. So I have demonstrating content. It was scored one time, 1 of 1. The score that they received was a 4 on a scale. You don't really need to worry about any of this. It's just extra stuff. Because I couldn't give you this without giving you this too, but I wanted you to have this page that shows you all these scores in one place. A lot of disks for this. Now, if I come down here to the observation domain 3, which are in classroom, that right now, because it wasn't finalized, it says 0 of 2, but it still shows me that score. I can actually click this open and let that look for a second. Once I finalize it, this would be green like this for both of them. Notice here, it's going to break it down and show me that these different scores, and so I have a 3 here, and this one hasn't been scored yet because it's not been completed. Same thing true for all these others. And then underneath this, you have the same reflective questions, which are what were those teachers' significant achievements, what are teachers' identified areas of growth, and are there any additional comments or any artifacts that you want to upload. If you optimize this and submit, your teacher will have a summary of just the scores that they received for domains 1, 2, 3, and 4 that were evaluated for them by their assigned observer for the year. It was a nice summary. I know that gives you a final record of the scores that were submitted so that you have those. It is not the same thing as the NMTeach summative evaluation. This really is looking at the scores on the observation. But it does put them in one place and makes it a little bit nicer and easier for you to view or for your teacher to view their scores all in one page without having to go into each individual observation task. And it'll be able to do that. Now, 4 minutes left, and I have one more thing to show you before we wrap this up, is down here this ad hoc elements. So some of you have been doing walkthrough observations on Teach and the Teachscape system, and the way that works now in Oaysis is it's an ad hoc element. So let's say I am looking at teacher 6 here. It would be different, but I'm going to look at teacher 6. And if I wanted to do a walkthrough, I just simply add an element. Choose which of the surveys I want to use. Let's say I'm going to use standard look forward. And sure to have to look at it, I can put that. If them to be able to see it, I click that. I click submit. I can even put 3 of these. If I wanted to do 5 on every teacher this year, I could put in how many times I wanted to put it in there. But I'm just going to put it once for now. Hit it, and so it adds it right down here for this teacher. And then I complete that walkthrough right here. The form looks exactly the same as what it did previously. It just functions a little differently than what it did previously. And so that's taking some getting used to. So the basic overview I wanted to give you today, and like I said, we started this session off by just saying, hey, we want to give you a demo of what it's going to look like. There are still some decisions that are being made. There are still some setup that's having to go into account, and we're still working on those things, and you're going to get more information as more of those decisions are made. But we felt that in collaboration with the PED, that it is important for us to get as much information transparently to you as possible, and so the best way to do that was to do these demos. As I said at the beginning of this webinar, you will receive a survey as soon as I end it, or when you close out, that asks you for any follow-up questions that you have. And I noticed that a lot of you have tried to ask some through the chat session, but it's very difficult for me to try to keep up with those while I'm presenting, which is why I prefer you ask those in that survey. That way I have them all in one place, and it'll make it easier for me to communicate those back to you. The other thing that I want you to know is when I email everybody the answers to the Q&As by early next week, I'll also include a link to the recorded teacher version of the webinar from yesterday, as well as a link to the recorded webinar today that is the evaluator version. Just be cautious in how you use those and share those only with the people you feel like that need to see that at one particular time. And again, it's not meant to be your training. It's meant to be a demo only. I'm sure there are still going to be some tweaks that are going to be made and some changes that will be made before it's finalized and before we roll it out to all districts. So keep that in mind. I appreciate all of you today and your attentiveness, and I really look forward to working with you guys for another year. And if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me directly or contact the PED, and they can get you in contact with me if they need to. The only thing I ask is that if you do have questions, try to send them to me directly. I'm going to send it in the chat window right now, my email address, so that you can write it down if you don't have it. If you have something that is more personal or more specific to you individually, you can reach out to me and contact me that way. It'll be a lot quicker than if you were trying to go through the support system for Line Technologies, just simply because I am the person who touches New Mexico. So they're going to route it to me eventually. And so you might as well just contact me directly if you have those specific questions. But anyway, thank you very much for your time today. I'm going to end this now. I hope everyone has a great afternoon and a good weekend after you make it through tomorrow. Thanks. Have a great day, guys.